As you take your first breath this morning, a startling realization settles in. Nothing will ever be the same. The air feels heavier, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to notice something you've always missed. You sit up, the sheets tangled around your legs, and for a moment you're suspended between sleep and waking, between the life you've lived and the one you're about to question. The familiar walls of your room seem to close in, not with comfort, but with a silent accusation. How much of what you believe about change, growth, and happiness is truly your own? How much is borrowed, recycled, or imposed? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that every self-help book you've ever read, every motivational video you've ever watched, every list of 10 steps to a better you has left you with a strange emptiness, a hunger that grows the more you try to feed it. You remember the promises: transform your life in 30 days, unlock your hidden potential, become the best version of yourself. Yet here you are years later, still searching, still restless, still haunted by the suspicion that something essential is missing. The more you chase after improvement, the more elusive it becomes, like a mirage shimmering on the horizon of your mind. You find yourself standing at the edge of a new reality, the truth dawning on you all at once. What if the very pursuit of self-help is the thing that keeps you trapped? What if the endless quest for betterment is not a ladder to climb, but a treadmill that spins faster the harder you run? The paradox is as unsettling as it is undeniable. You've been told that happiness is just one more habit away, that fulfillment is a matter of mindset, that meaning can be manufactured with enough positive thinking. But what if these are not solutions, but symptoms of a deeper malaise, a spiritual vertigo that no amount of affirmations can cure? Suddenly, you're faced with a moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew. The world outside your window is unchanged. The same city, the same sky, the same relentless march of time. But inside, a storm is gathering. You remember the faces of friends and strangers, all caught in the same cycle. The initial rush of hope, the brief surge of motivation, the inevitable return to old patterns. You recall the language of self-help, words like empowerment, resilience, manifestation, and wonder why they sound so hollow now, like echoes in an empty hall. Why do so many people, armed with the best advice, the latest techniques, and the most inspiring stories, still find themselves lost? Why does the promise of transformation so often dissolve into disappointment, leaving behind only the bitter aftertaste of failure? Is it possible that the very act of seeking help is itself a confession of helplessness, a subtle admission that you are not enough and never will be? Or is there something even more insidious at work, a hidden force that turns every attempt at self-improvement into another form of self-sabotage? As you sit in the quiet of your room, the questions multiply, each one more urgent than the last. What if the problem is not that you haven't tried hard enough, but that you've been trying in the wrong way? What if the advice you've been given is not just ineffective, but actively harmful, reinforcing the very insecurities it claims to cure? What if the entire self-help industry is built on a foundation of sand, promising certainty in a world that is fundamentally uncertain, selling hope to those who are desperate for answers? You remember the faces of the gurus, the coaches, the influencers, each one radiating confidence, each one offering a blueprint for success. But beneath their polished exteriors, you sense a deeper anxiety, a frantic need to believe in their own prescriptions. You wonder, do they truly possess the answers? Or are they just as lost as everyone else, clinging to their systems and slogans like life rafts in a stormy sea? Is it possible that the very people who claim to have found the way are themselves wandering in the dark, guided only by the flickering light of their own convictions? The paradox deepens. The more you seek to improve yourself, the more you become aware of your flaws. The more you strive for happiness, the more you notice its absence. The more you chase after meaning, the more it slips through your fingers. It's as if the act of searching creates the very lack you're trying to fill, as if the pursuit of self-help is a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, a cycle of hope and disappointment that feeds on itself, growing stronger with every failed attempt. You begin to see the outlines of a larger pattern, a hidden architecture of desire and dissatisfaction that shapes your every thought and action. You recall the words of philosophers and poets, the warnings of ancient sages, Beware the endless striving, the hunger that can never be satisfied. Yet in the modern world, this warning has been repackaged as encouragement, the hunger itself transformed into a virtue. You are told to never settle, to always be improving, to reach for the stars. But what if this relentless drive is not a sign of strength, but a symptom of a deeper wound, a wound that no amount of achievement can heal? As you take stock of your life, you notice the subtle ways in which self-help advice has shaped your identity. You remember the journals filled with goals and affirmations, the vision boards plastered with images of success, the endless lists of habits to build and vices to break, each one a promise, each one a contract with your future self. But as you look back, you realize how many of these promises have been broken, how many contracts have gone unfulfilled. The weight of unmet expectations presses down on you, a silent burden that grows heavier with each passing year. You wonder, what if the real problem is not that you have failed to change, but that you have been taught to see yourself as a perpetual project, always unfinished, always in need of fixing? What if the very language of self-help is a kind of poison, infecting your sense of self with doubt and inadequacy? What if the constant focus on improvement blinds you to the possibility of acceptance, of finding meaning not in what you might become, but in who you already are? The questions swirl around you, each one a challenge to the assumptions you've carried for so long. Is it possible to grow without striving? To find peace without achievement? To live fully without the constant pressure to become someone else? Or is the very idea of self-help a contradiction, a quest for wholeness that begins with the premise that you are broken? You feel the tension building, a sense of urgency that refuses to be ignored. The world is full of people searching for answers, desperate for guidance, willing to try anything that promises relief from the ache of existence. Yet for all the books sold, all the seminars attended, all the hours spent meditating, journaling, visualizing, the fundamental questions remain unanswered. Why do so many people, armed with so much advice, still feel so lost? Why does the promise of transformation so often end in disappointment? What is the hidden force that keeps us trapped in this cycle, and how can we break free? As the morning light creeps across your room, you realize that you are not alone in your doubts. The struggle is universal, the questions timeless. Across cultures and centuries, human beings have wrestled with the desire to change, to grow, to transcend their limitations. Yet the solutions offered by self-help often seem to fall short, leaving behind a trail of broken dreams and unfulfilled promises. You begin to suspect that the problem is not with you, but with the very framework you've been given. The assumptions, the values, the definitions of success and failure that shape your every thought. What if the real challenge is not to become someone else, but to see yourself and the world with new eyes? What if the path to fulfillment lies not in the endless pursuit of improvement, but in the radical acceptance of your own humanity? The questions hang in the air, heavy with possibility. You sense that you are on the verge of a breakthrough, a new way of seeing that could change everything. But for now, you sit with the tension, the uncertainty, the paradox. You allow yourself to feel the weight of the questions, to inhabit the space between hope and despair, between striving and surrender. As you rise to face the day, you carry these questions with you, like stones in your pocket, reminders of the journey you are about to undertake. The world outside is unchanged, but inside, something has shifted. You are no longer content with easy answers, with quick fixes and empty promises. You are ready to dig deeper, to confront the hidden forces that shape your life, to seek a truth that cannot be found in any book or seminar. And so, the great question remains: why does most self-help advice fail? What is the hidden flaw at the heart of the quest for self-improvement? And what would it mean to break free from the cycle, to find a new way of being in the world? The answers are waiting, just beyond the horizon of your understanding. But to reach them, you must first be willing to question everything you thought you knew, to let go of the familiar, to embrace the unknown, to step into the darkness and trust that something deeper awaits. The journey has begun. The next step is to uncover the hidden problem, the psychological and philosophical roots of the self-help paradox that has ensnared so many. Only then can you hope to find your way out of the maze, to reclaim your life from the forces that would keep you forever searching, forever striving, forever incomplete. You step out into the world, the questions from the morning still echoing in your mind, their weight pressing against your chest with every breath. The city moves around you, people hurrying, faces set in determination or distraction, each one carrying their own invisible burdens. You wonder how many of them are, like you, haunted by the suspicion that something essential is missing, that the promises of self-help have somehow failed to deliver. You sense a hidden current beneath the surface of daily life, a silent undertow pulling everyone in the same direction, even as they struggle to swim free. What is this force that keeps you and so many others trapped in the cycle of striving and disappointment? Why does the pursuit of self-improvement so often lead not to liberation, but to a deeper sense of inadequacy? The answers, you begin to realize, are not merely personal. They are woven into the fabric of your mind, your culture, your very sense of self. You recall the words of Carl Jung, who warned that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The self-help industry, for all its talk of empowerment, rarely asks you to do this. Instead, it offers endless strategies for becoming someone else, someone more productive, more attractive, more successful. The underlying message is clear. Who you are is not enough. You must be fixed, improved, transformed. But Jung saw the danger in this relentless pursuit of change. He understood that the shadow, the parts of yourself you reject, deny, or hide, grows stronger the more you try to banish it. The more you strive to become your best self, the more you feed the fear that your true self is unworthy. You think of Friedrich Nietzsche, who wrote of the will to power, the drive to overcome, to transcend, to assert oneself in the face of chaos. Nietzsche admired the strength it took to create one's own values, to become a creator rather than a follower. Yet he also saw the danger in the endless pursuit of improvement. He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises, he wrote, hinting at the paradox at the heart of self-help. The very act of striving for a better self can become a subtle form of self-contempt. You chase after ideals, not because you love yourself, but because you cannot bear to accept yourself as you are. Arthur Schopenhauer, the great pessimist, saw suffering as the fundamental condition of human existence. He believed that desire itself was a kind of curse, a ceaseless longing that could never be satisfied. The self-help industry, with its promises of fulfillment and happiness, is built on the denial of this truth. It tells you that suffering is a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be overcome, rather than an inescapable part of being alive. But what if Schopenhauer was right? What if the endless pursuit of happiness is itself a source of suffering? A refusal to accept the tragic beauty of existence. You remember Aldous Huxley, who warned of the dangers of feel-good philosophies that offer easy answers to life's deepest questions. In a world obsessed with comfort and convenience, self-help becomes just another product, a way to numb the pain, to distract yourself from the existential void. Huxley saw that true growth requires facing the darkness, embracing uncertainty, and accepting the limits of your own understanding. But the self-help industry rarely asks you to do this. It offers certainty where there is none, hope where there is only ambiguity, and solutions where there are only mysteries. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, believed that you are condemned to be free, that you must create your own meaning in a world that offers none. The self-help industry, by contrast, offers ready-made meanings, pre-packaged purposes, and step-by-step guides to fulfillment. But Sartre saw that true freedom is terrifying. It means accepting responsibility for your own existence, facing the anxiety of choice, and living with the knowledge that there are no guarantees. The comfort of self-help is seductive, but it comes at the cost of your own authenticity. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the concentration camps, found meaning not in the pursuit of happiness, but in the acceptance of suffering. He wrote that those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. The self-help industry, in its rush to offer solutions, often overlooks the importance of meaning. It tells you how to be happy, but not why happiness matters. It offers techniques for success, but not a reason to succeed. Frankl understood that meaning cannot be given to you by someone else. It must be discovered in the depths of your own experience, often in the face of pain and loss. You begin to see how these philosophical insights reveal the hidden problem at the heart of self-help. The industry is built on a set of assumptions that are rarely questioned, that change is always good, that happiness is the ultimate goal, that suffering is a mistake, that meaning can be manufactured. But what if these assumptions are false? What if the relentless pursuit of improvement is itself a form of avoidance, a way to escape the deeper questions that haunt every human life? You notice how these ideas have shaped your own behavior, often without your awareness. You remember the times you set goals, not because you truly wanted them, but because you felt you should. The times you forced yourself to be positive, even when you were in pain. The times you measured your worth by your productivity, your appearance, your achievements. Each time, you were following a script written by someone else, a script that promised happiness, but delivered only anxiety. You see how society reinforces these patterns at every turn. From a young age, you are taught to compete, to compare, to strive for more. You are bombarded with images of perfection, flawless bodies, effortless success, endless happiness. The message is clear. You are not enough as you are. You must buy, achieve, improve. The self-help industry is both a symptom and a cause of this cultural sickness, feeding on your insecurities and selling you the illusion of control. You begin to understand that the problem is not just psychological but existential. It is rooted in the very nature of human consciousness, the ability to imagine, to desire, to compare yourself to an ideal. This capacity is both a gift and a curse. It drives you to create, to grow, to dream. But it also makes you painfully aware of your own limitations, your failures, your mortality. The self-help industry exploits this vulnerability, offering comfort where there is only uncertainty, certainty where there is only doubt. You feel the tension between the desire to change and the need to accept yourself. You sense the danger in both extremes, the stagnation of resignation and the exhaustion of endless striving. You realize that true growth requires a delicate balance, a willingness to face your flaws without being defined by them, to pursue improvement without losing sight of your inherent worth. You wonder, what would it mean to accept yourself completely, as Jung suggested, to embrace your shadow, your flaws, your contradictions? What would it mean to create your own values, as Nietzsche urged, rather than following the prescriptions of others? What would it mean to find meaning in suffering, as Frankl did, rather than fleeing from it? What would it mean to live authentically, as Sartre demanded, rather than hiding behind the masks of self-help? You sense that the answers to these questions cannot be found in any book or seminar. They must be lived, wrestled with, suffered through. They require a kind of courage that is rarely celebrated in the world of self-help. The courage to face yourself, to accept your limitations, to find meaning in the midst of uncertainty. You realize that the hidden problem at the heart of self-help is not a lack of motivation or discipline or knowledge. It is a failure to confront the deeper questions of existence, the questions that have haunted philosophers and poets for centuries. The industry offers techniques and strategies, but it cannot offer wisdom. It promises transformation, but it cannot deliver meaning. It sells hope, but it cannot cure despair. You feel the weight of this realization, the gravity of the task before you. To break free from the cycle of self-help, you must be willing to question the very foundations of your identity, your values, your desires. You must be willing to face the darkness, to embrace uncertainty, to accept the tragic beauty of existence. The journey is not easy. It requires you to let go of comforting illusions, to confront painful truths, to accept the limits of your own understanding. But it also offers the possibility of something deeper, a sense of meaning that cannot be bought or sold, a sense of self that is not dependent on achievement or approval. As you walk through the city, the questions linger, their answers just out of reach. You sense that you are on the verge of a new understanding, a breakthrough that could change everything. But first, you must confront the unseen consequences of the self-help paradox, the ways in which it shapes your life, your relationships, your society. The next step is to uncover these hidden costs, to see the full extent of the trap you have been caught in. Only then can you hope to find a way out, to reclaim your life from the forces that would keep you forever searching, forever striving, forever incomplete. You move through the day, the city's pulse echoing the rhythm of your own thoughts, and you begin to notice the subtle ways the self-help paradox has shaped not just your mind, but the very architecture of your reality. It is everywhere, woven into the fabric of your relationships, your ambitions, your quietest moments of self-reflection. Like a shadow that lengthens as the sun sets, its influence grows more pronounced the more you try to escape it. You see it in the faces of strangers on the train, each one absorbed in their own private struggle for improvement. Some scroll through motivational quotes, others listen to podcasts promising the secrets of success. You catch fragments of conversation, plans for new routines, diets, side hustles, all spoken with a mixture of hope and desperation. The language is always the same. I just need to get my act together. If I could only fix this one thing. Next year will be different. The cycle repeats, year after year, a silent epidemic of self-doubt and striving. You begin to sense the true cost of this endless pursuit. It is not just disappointment or fatigue, but something deeper, a quiet erosion of the soul. The more you chase after the ideal self, the more distant you become from your actual self. The more you measure your worth by external standards, the more fragile your sense of identity becomes. You start to realize that the self-help industry, for all its promises of empowerment, has created a culture of chronic dissatisfaction, a world in which nobody is ever quite enough. You remember the words of psychologists who have studied the effects of this relentless focus on self-improvement. They speak of the hedonic treadmill, the tendency for people to quickly return to a baseline level of happiness no matter how much they achieve. Each new goal once reached loses its power to satisfy, and a new goal must be set. The cycle is endless, the satisfaction always just out of reach. You wonder, is it possible that the very act of striving for happiness is what keeps it forever beyond your grasp? You think of the cognitive biases that shape your perception, the invisible filters that distort your experience of reality. Confirmation bias leads you to seek out evidence that supports your belief in self-improvement, while ignoring the signs that it may be doing more harm than good. The availability heuristic makes the success stories of self-help gurus seem more common than they really are, while the countless stories of failure and disappointment are quietly forgotten. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you investing time, money, and energy into systems that have never worked, simply because you have already invested so much. You see how these biases are not just individual quirks but collective habits of mind, reinforced by a culture that worships success and despises failure. The self-help industry thrives on these biases, using them to sell hope to the hopeless, certainty to the uncertain, meaning to the lost. It is a machine that feeds on your insecurities, growing stronger with every failed attempt at transformation. You begin to notice the neurological consequences of this cycle. Neuroscientists have shown that the brain's reward system is easily hijacked by the promise of quick fixes and instant gratification. Each new self-help technique triggers a burst of dopamine, a fleeting sense of excitement and possibility. But when the novelty wears off, the brain craves another hit, another promise, another solution. The result is a kind of addiction, not to any substance, but to the very idea of self-improvement. You become a junkie for hope, always chasing the next high, never able to rest. You see how this addiction shapes your relationships. The constant focus on self-improvement can make you self-absorbed, always measuring your worth against others, always seeking validation. It can make intimacy difficult as you struggle to present a perfect image to the world, hiding your flaws and vulnerabilities. It can breed resentment as you compare your progress to that of your friends, your partners, your colleagues. The result is a culture of competition, envy, and isolation, a world in which everyone is striving, but no one is truly seen. You notice how this mindset seeps into your work, your creativity, your sense of purpose, the pressure to be productive, to optimize every moment, to turn every hobby into a side hustle, drains the joy from your life. You begin to see yourself as a machine, a project, a brand to be managed and marketed. The line between work and play blurs, and soon everything becomes a means to an end, a way to improve, to achieve, to prove your worth. You realize that the consequences are not just personal, but societal. The self-help industry has become a multi-billion-dollar behemoth, shaping the values and aspirations of entire generations. It has created a world in which vulnerability is seen as weakness, failure as shame, and rest as laziness. It has turned the search for meaning into a marketplace, where every answer has a price tag and every problem a product. You see the effects in the rise of anxiety, depression, and burnout epidemics of the modern age, fueled by the relentless pressure to be more, do more, achieve more. You see it in the growing sense of alienation as people become disconnected from themselves, from each other, from the world around them. You see it in the loss of community, as the focus on individual achievement erodes the bonds of solidarity and mutual support. You begin to understand that the unseen consequences of the self-help paradox are not just psychological, but existential. They touch the deepest parts of your being, shaping your sense of self, your relationships, your place in the world. They create a world in which everyone is searching for answers, but no one is allowed to admit that they are lost. You wonder, what would it mean to step off the treadmill, to stop measuring your worth by your achievements, to accept yourself as you are? What would it mean to find meaning not in the pursuit of happiness, but in the acceptance of suffering, the embrace of uncertainty, the cultivation of compassion? What would it mean to build a life not on the shifting sands of self-improvement, but on the solid ground of self-acceptance? You sense that the answers to these questions are not easy, that they require a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to let go of the familiar, to embrace the unknown, to trust in the wisdom of your own experience. You realize that the path to freedom is not a matter of finding the right technique or the perfect system, but of breaking the spell that has kept you trapped for so long. You feel the urgency of this realization, the need to escape the unseen trap that has shaped your life and the lives of so many others. You sense that the time has come to rebel, to challenge the assumptions that have held you captive, to reclaim your life from the forces that would keep you forever searching, forever striving, forever incomplete. But before you can break free, you must first see the full extent of the trap, the ways in which it has shaped your mind, your heart, your soul. You must be willing to confront the darkness, to face the pain, to accept the limits of your own understanding. Only then can you hope to find a new way of being in the world, a way that is rooted not in the endless pursuit of improvement, but in the radical acceptance of your own humanity. As the day draws to a close, you feel the weight of these insights pressing down on you, a mixture of grief and hope, despair and possibility. You sense that you are standing at the threshold of a new reality, a world in which the old rules no longer apply. The journey is far from over, but you are no longer content to follow the path laid out by others. You are ready to rebel, to challenge the assumptions that have shaped your life, to seek a truth that cannot be found in any book or seminar. The next step is to discover how to break free, to find the courage to question everything you have been taught, to reclaim your life from the forces that would keep you forever searching, forever striving, forever incomplete. Night falls, and you find yourself alone with your thoughts, the city's noise fading into a distant hum. The questions that have haunted you all day now crystallize into a single urgent demand. How do you break free? How do you rebel against a system that has colonized not just your habits, but your very sense of self? The air feels electric, charged with the possibility of transformation. Not the kind promised by self-help gurus, but something rawer, more authentic, more dangerous. You realize that true rebellion begins not with action, but with awareness. You must first see the bars of your cage before you can hope to escape it. You sit in the darkness, letting the silence settle around you, and you begin to notice the subtle ways in which you have internalized the logic of self-help. The constant self-monitoring, the endless comparisons, the nagging sense that you are always falling short. You see how these patterns have become so familiar that you mistake them for your own thoughts, your own desires. But now you begin to question them. You ask yourself, whose standards am I living by? Whose definition of success have I adopted? Whose voice is it that whispers, "You are not enough"? The act of questioning is itself a form of rebellion, a refusal to accept the narratives that have been handed to you, a willingness to carve out your own path. You remember the words of Nietzsche, who urged you to become who you are, not who you are told to be, not who you wish you were, but who you are in your deepest, most authentic self. This is not a journey of addition, but of subtraction, a stripping away of illusions, a letting go of borrowed dreams. You realize that the first step to freedom is to stop running from yourself, to turn and face the parts of you that you have tried so hard to change. You think of Carl Jung's shadow, the aspects of yourself that you have rejected, denied, or hidden away. The self-help industry tells you to banish these shadows, to replace them with light. But Jung knew that true growth comes not from denial, but from integration. You must learn to make peace with your darkness, to see your flaws not as enemies, but as teachers. You begin to understand that rebellion is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. You recall the story of Siddhartha, who left behind a life of privilege and comfort to seek enlightenment. He tried every method, every discipline, every form of self-denial, but found only frustration and emptiness. It was only when he abandoned the search, when he sat beneath the Bodhi tree and accepted himself as he was, that he found what he was looking for. The lesson is clear. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing the game. You realize that breaking free requires a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to embrace paradox, to hold opposing truths at once. You can strive for growth while accepting your limitations. You can seek meaning while acknowledging the absurdity of existence. You can pursue happiness while making room for sorrow. The rebellion is not against effort, but against the tyranny of perfection. You begin to experiment with new ways of being. You allow yourself to rest, to do nothing, to simply be. At first, the old anxieties return, the fear of wasting time, of falling behind, of missing out. But slowly, you begin to notice a new kind of freedom, a spaciousness that was never available to you when you were always striving. You discover that creativity flourishes in the absence of pressure, that joy arises spontaneously when you stop chasing it. You look to history for examples of those who have broken free from the self-help trap. You think of the Stoics, who taught that true happiness comes not from changing the world, but from changing your relationship to it. Epictetus, born a slave, found freedom not in external circumstances, but in the mastery of his own mind. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his journal not about conquest or achievement, but about humility, acceptance, and the fleeting nature of life. You remember Viktor Frankl, who found meaning in the midst of unimaginable suffering. He did not seek to escape his pain, but to find purpose within it. His rebellion was not against his circumstances, but against the idea that his life had no meaning. He discovered that even in the darkest moments, you have the power to choose your response, to create meaning out of chaos. You think of artists and poets who have refused to conform, who have embraced their own strangeness, their own vulnerability. Frida Kahlo, painting her pain and her passion onto the canvas of her life. James Baldwin, writing with unflinching honesty about race, love, and identity. Their rebellion was not a rejection of themselves, but a radical acceptance, a willingness to be seen, to be known, to be real. You begin to see that the path to freedom is not a straight line, but a spiral, a journey that circles back on itself, each time deeper, each time more honest. You will stumble, you will fall, you will be tempted to return to the comfort of old patterns. But each time you choose authenticity over approval, acceptance over striving, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost. You realize that the rebellion is not just personal, but collective. The self-help industry thrives on isolation, on the belief that your struggles are yours alone. But when you share your doubts, your fears, your failures, you discover that you are not alone. You find community in vulnerability, solidarity in imperfection. You begin to see that true transformation is not a solitary achievement, but a shared journey. You start to question the very language of self-help, the words and phrases that have shaped your reality. You notice how often you say should, must, have to. You begin to replace them with could, might, choose to. You notice how often you compare yourself to others, and you practice gratitude for what you have, compassion for who you are. You learn to celebrate small victories, to forgive yourself for setbacks, to trust in the slow, messy process of growth. You experiment with new practices, not as techniques to fix yourself, but as rituals to honor your humanity. You meditate, not to become calm or productive, but to listen to the quiet voice within. You journal, not to track your progress, but to make sense of your experience. You walk in nature, not to burn calories, but to remember your place in the world. Each act becomes an act of rebellion, a refusal to be reduced to a project, a product, a problem to be solved. You begin to see the world with new eyes. You notice the beauty in imperfection, the wisdom in uncertainty, the strength in vulnerability. You realize that the most radical act is not to change yourself, but to accept yourself, to stand in the truth of who you are, flaws and all, and to live from that place of authenticity. You sense that this rebellion will not be easy. The old patterns are deeply ingrained, the pressures of society relentless. But you also sense a new kind of power, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you are enough, just as you are. You realize that the journey is not about arriving at some final destination, but about learning to live with the questions, to find meaning in the struggle, to embrace the mystery of your own existence. You feel the energy of this rebellion building within you, a fire that cannot be extinguished by failure or disappointment. You are no longer content to follow the path laid out by others. You are ready to create your own path, to write your own story, to live your own truth. As the night deepens, you sit in the stillness, feeling the weight of your own presence. You are no longer running, no longer hiding, no longer striving to be someone else. You are here, now, alive to the possibilities of the moment. The rebellion has begun, not with a shout, but with a whisper, a quiet resolve to be true to yourself, no matter what. You sense that something profound is about to be revealed, a truth that will change everything, a realization that will make sense of all your struggles, all your searching, all your pain. You are ready to receive it, to let it transform you, to carry it with you into the world. The final, most powerful realization awaits, a paradigm shift so deep, so complete, that it will redefine your understanding of self, of life, of what it means to be free. Dawn breaks, and with it comes a hush, a moment suspended between darkness and light, between the world you once knew and the world you are about to enter. You sit at the window watching the first rays of sun spill across the city, and you feel it, the trembling anticipation of revelation. The rebellion has stripped you bare, peeled away the layers of illusion and striving, left you raw and open to something deeper. You sense that the answer you have been seeking is close, so close you can almost touch it. But it is not what you expected. It is not a technique, a mantra, a secret formula. It is something far more unsettling, far more liberating. You close your eyes, and in the silence, a single truth emerges, quiet, undeniable, and absolute. You are not a problem to be solved. You never were. The words settle over you like a benediction, at once shattering and healing. All your life, you have been taught to see yourself as a project, a puzzle, a set of flaws to be fixed. Every book, every seminar, every well-meaning piece of advice has reinforced the same message: you are not enough as you are. You must become more disciplined, more positive, more successful, more enlightened. But now, in the stillness of this new morning, you see the lie for what it is. You see that the endless pursuit of self-improvement was never about growth, but about escape. Escape from the messy, beautiful, irreducible reality of your own existence. You remember the philosophers who warned against the tyranny of ideals. Nietzsche, who saw that the pursuit of perfection is a form of self-hatred. Jung, who taught that wholeness comes not from denying your darkness, but from embracing it. Frankl, who found meaning not in the avoidance of suffering, but in the courage to face it. Their wisdom converges in this moment, illuminating the path you have walked. The ultimate truth is not that you must become someone else, but that you must learn to love who you already are. You open your eyes and look at your reflection, not in the mirror, but in the world around you. You see yourself in the faces of strangers, in the laughter of children, in the quiet dignity of those who carry their burdens with grace. You realize that everyone is fighting the same battle, wrestling with the same doubts, longing for the same acceptance. The self-help industry has convinced you that you are alone in your struggles, but the truth is that your pain is universal, your longing is shared. You are not broken, you are human. You feel a wave of relief, mingled with grief, for all the years you spent chasing an illusion. You mourn the time lost to self-criticism, the energy wasted on impossible standards, the love withheld from yourself in the name of improvement. But you also feel a new sense of freedom, a lightness that comes from letting go of the need to be anything other than what you are. You realize that the journey was never about becoming perfect, but about coming home to yourself. You begin to see the world with new eyes. The flaws and failures that once seemed so shameful now appear as badges of survival, evidence of your resilience. The wounds you tried to hide become sources of empathy, connecting you to others in their suffering. The uncertainties that once filled you with dread now open into possibility, inviting you to live with curiosity and wonder. You realize that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. You remember the words of the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. You see that the ultimate truth is not an answer, but a way of being, a willingness to dwell in the uncertainty, to embrace the contradictions, to find beauty in the imperfection of your own existence. You realize that the search for certainty was always a form of fear, a refusal to trust in the unfolding of your own life. You feel the urge to share this realization, to reach out to others who are still trapped in the cycle of striving and self-doubt. You want to tell them, you are enough, you are worthy, you do not need to earn your place in the world, you do not need to fix yourself before you can be loved. The ultimate act of rebellion is to accept yourself, to stand in your own truth, to refuse the lie that you are a problem to be solved. You see how this truth changes everything. It transforms your relationships, freeing you from the need to impress or compete. It transforms your work, allowing you to create from a place of joy rather than anxiety. It transforms your sense of purpose, grounding you in the present moment rather than some imagined future. You realize that the only thing you ever needed was permission to be flawed, to be vulnerable, to be real. You look back on the journey that brought you here. The years of striving, the moments of despair, the flashes of insight. You see that every step, every stumble, every failure was necessary. You could not have arrived at this truth without first losing yourself in the search. The paradox is complete. The only way to find yourself is to stop looking for someone else. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the pain that taught you compassion, for the confusion that led you to wisdom, for the longing that brought you home. You realize that the ultimate truth is not something you can possess, but something you must live, moment by moment, breath by breath. It is a practice, a discipline, a way of being in the world. You rise from your seat, the city waking around you, and you carry this truth with you into the day. You move through the world with a new sense of ease, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that you are enough. You no longer need to prove yourself, to chase after approval, to measure your worth by external standards. You are free, not because you have solved the problem of yourself, but because you have realized that there was never a problem to begin with. You notice the small miracles of daily life, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the laughter of a friend, the taste of coffee in the morning. You savor these moments, not as rewards for your efforts, but as gifts to be received with gratitude. You realize that happiness is not something to be achieved, but something to be noticed, to be welcomed, to be lived. You feel the presence of those who have walked this path before you, the philosophers, the poets, the rebels who refuse to be defined by the standards of their time. You sense their encouragement, their solidarity, their quiet joy. You realize that you are part of a lineage, a tradition of seekers who have dared to question the assumptions of their age. You are not alone. You never were. You end the day as you began it, in silence, watching the light fade from the sky. You feel a sense of peace, a sense of completion, a sense of beginning. The journey is not over, it never is, but you are no longer searching for answers outside yourself. You are no longer waiting for permission to live. You are here, now, alive to the mystery of your own existence. You understand, at last, that the ultimate truth is not a destination, but a way of traveling, a willingness to be present, to be open, to be real. You realize that the only thing you ever needed was the courage to be yourself, to trust in your own experience, to live your own life. As the darkness settles, you whisper a quiet promise to yourself. I will no longer treat myself as a problem to be solved. I will honor my wounds, my doubts, my dreams. I will live with the questions, love the contradictions, and find meaning in the messiness of being human. And as you drift into sleep, you carry this truth with you, a truth that will haunt you, inspire you, and guide you for the rest of your days. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived.